Everybody, we're just going to get started in a minute or so. So please take this time and silence all your cell phones. Great. This event is being live streamed, so now would be the best time to silence your cell phones. You'll find some cards on your chairs. If you have any questions for our speakers today, just write them on the cards, legibly please, so I can read them. And we'll have staff members come by and collect them and pass them over to us. I'm going to ask as many questions as I can.
Poonam, can you be a little louder? We're not
What do you reserve chairs for?
Hello. Ambassador, check if your mic.
Hello.
I don't think the microphones are working.
Is yours on? No?
Well, we can find out.
Hello?
Is this audible outside the back? Yeah?
Am I audible?
Thank you. Thanks so much.
It should be.
Neha, why don't you just stand in the back row and see if you can hear each of them?
Can everyone hear me?
It's on.
Yes? No?
Say something?
It's on. It's on now.
Yeah.
All right.
Tejasvi,
Hello?
say something?
Okay.
Namaste, can you hear me? Yeah, thanks.
All right, everybody, if you can just get settled. Thank you.
Taranjit, maybe yours is not on. It was on, so can I just put it a little higher?
Right.
Just.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the National Press Club, the place where news happens. I'm Poonam Sharma, the treasurer of the National Press Club, editor at Global StratView, and columnist for the Mumbai-based publication Sakal Avtaran. On April 22nd, 2025, there was a terrorist attack in Pahalgam, Kashmir, in which 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were killed. On May 7th, the Indian Defense Forces launched Operation Sindoor as a military strike on targets believed to be terrorist sites in Pakistan. Following Operation Sindoor and the establishment of an ongoing ceasefire, India dispatched multi-party parliamentary delegations globally to provide clarity and communicate the ground realities of the situation. Our visiting delegation in the United States, they have been engaging with think tanks, academic institutions, and media representatives to discuss the India-U.S. strategic partnership and highlight India's position on terrorism. So today we're joined by 4 members of that delegation.
Sure.
Right next to me, none of these need any introduction, but however, Dr. Shashi Tharoor is an author, politician, and former international diplomat, a 4-term member of parliament. He represents Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, in the Lok Sabha. A member of the Indian National Congress, he has served as Minister of State for External Affairs as well. And he's currently the chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs. Mr. Milind Deora is a former union minister and member of parliament from Mumbai South. Mr. Tejasvi Surya is elected to the 17th Lok Sabha at the age of 28. He represents Bengaluru South in Parliament. And of course, Ambassador Taranjit Singh Sandhu is a retired Indian diplomat who was ambassador of India to the United States from February 2020 to January 2024. He's also served as High Commissioner of India to Sri Lanka from January 2017 to 2020. So please join me in giving them all a warm National Press Club welcome. So Dr. Tharoor, over to you for some opening remarks.
Thank you, Poonam. Well, I'll keep those brief so we can get straight into a conversation. Poonam has already explained who we are and why we're here and who we're meeting. Broadly speaking, we have been to 4 countries already on the way here, though our first stop when we left Delhi was indeed in New York, so we could go and pay tribute at the 9/11 memorial and convey, if you like, our strong solidarity with victims of terrorism everywhere, since 9/11 accounted for people from so many different nationalities. We then went on to Guyana, where we met the government, legislators. In every place we met government, legislators, think tanks, and media. We went on from Guyana to Panama, from Panama to Colombia, from Colombia to Brazil, and here we are now with all of you. At the end of the Memorial Day recess, spending a day on Capitol Hill has been extremely rewarding because we were able to meet a number of congressmen and senators. And in fact, we've just come from a meeting with half a dozen senators who came up and said hello, all of them associated with either the Foreign Relations Committee or the Intelligence Committee. So broadly, what we are seeking to do in every country is to explain our version of events, our experience of the last few weeks, to seek the solidarity and understanding of those we meet and speak to. And I'm very pleased to say that so far, our batting average is over 100. In other words, every single person we have met so far has immediately not only condemned resolutely the terrorist attack upon India and expressed their outrage and their sympathy, but they have also explicitly endorsed India's right to defend itself against terrorism. And this kind of understanding has been most welcome. We've had broader conversations everywhere because India is not going to be defined by one particular incident. We are a country with great ambitions for ourselves, for our people. We are focused on our economic development, on our growth. We are focused on technology, on pharmaceuticals, and the whole range of activities that have marked us out as a significant player to be reckoned with in the world. And we're very happy to continue doing all of that. In fact, for us, this terrorist episode was a distraction. It was a most unfortunate and even frustrating experience to have this inflicted upon us at a time when we were focusing on growth. In fact, in Kashmir, it's very striking. The previous summer, we'd seen more tourism and more tourists coming than Aspen, Colorado gets every year. And in the course of this year, the first few months of this year, there'd been a 100% increase on the corresponding months of last year. So Kashmir was booming. Ordinary Kashmiris are benefiting from vast numbers of tourists coming in, putting money into their hands and their pockets. It was a lovely time. And here's this innocent group of holidays, tourists on a dappled meadow in Kashmir, being murdered in cold blood by people coming and asking their religion and shooting them between the eyes. It really was a sickening outrage. And the nation rose as one to support whatever the government chose to do, and what the government chose to do in the end was what most of us would have wanted. I myself wrote an op-ed 2 days after Pahalgam, which was headlined, "Hit Hard, Hit Smart." And that's exactly what the government did. It hit hard, but it hit smart. It started off making a very clear signal this is only about retribution for terrorism. That is, hit only the 9 bases of established, known terror organizations listed on the U.S. State Department's terror designate list, listed on the United Nations Terrorism Sanctions Committee, the 1267 Committee's list of designated terrorists, and we only hit those. The government publicly announced and told the Pakistanis to, we have not hit any Pakistan government sites, we haven't hit any Pakistan civilian sites, we haven't hit any military sites either. We've just hit terrorist infrastructure. And as far as we're concerned, that's it, we're done. Pakistan chose to retaliate in the most indiscriminate and irresponsible fashion, shelling civilian areas, hitting Sikh Gurdwara, hitting the convent of the Carmelites of Mother Mary in Poonch, killing people in their homes, on the streets, 19 people killed, 59 hospitalized with grave injuries. This was obviously something we had to respond to, and every time Pakistan hit, we hit back. But each time, if you were to go back and look at the briefings the government gave each morning, the message was very clear. We are hitting them because they're hitting us. If they stop, we'll stop. And after 88 hours, the Pakistani Director General of Military Operations reached out to his Indian counterpart and said, let's call it off, and we called it off. We had no desire to persist with this war because, as I said, we have better things to do. It's just a tragic situation that has been needlessly inflicted upon us. And I say to all of you, when we seek understanding for what we've done, it's not in a warlike spirit. We're very conscious we are the heirs of Mahatma Gandhi, a legacy of ahimsa and nonviolence. But we will also honor his advice to stay firm, to live without fear, to have the self-respect, never to bow down, never to surrender to this kind of terrorism. And we are going to continue. If they continue, we will continue. If they will let things alone, we will let things alone. Because we have, as I said, a very clear focus on our own development. I think I'll leave it there, not because I have no more to say, there's plenty to say, but I would rather respond to your questions, and my colleagues are also ready to add their words to these remarks of mine when you have questions for them.
All right.
Floor is yours.
We have questions that have been submitted in
You'll
advance.
ask the question.
Yeah. And if the audience has more, they can pass them forward as well.
Sure. You'll pass the questions to Poonam.
Right.
Okay.
So one question that we've gotten from several members of the press
Sure.
is why the name Operation Sindoor?
Right.
If you could just briefly address that for those who are not familiar.
Right. Well, Operation Sindoor, actually, I thought was a brilliantly chosen name. The Sindoor, in case some Americans obviously don't know about this, is a vermilion mark that is applied to the center of the forehead of married women in the Hindu tradition. It's widely practiced. Some non-Hindus do it too, but more for decorative purposes. But strictly speaking, the Sindoor is applied at the time of the marriage ceremony and is worn every day thereafter by married women. So we were very conscious that these brutal terrorists, who, by the way, shot men in front of their wives and children, but spared the women. And when the one wife screamed out, "Kill me too," she was told, "No, you go back and tell them what we've done." That was why the women were spared. It was a horrendous act. But that Sindoor had essentially been wiped off the foreheads of 26 Indian women, or 26, I was going to say Hindu women, but one of them actually was a Christian. But the Sindoor had been wiped off the rest by these terrorist actions. And so we wanted, first of all, to avenge that act of wiping off the Sindoor. But secondly, it's no accident that the color of the Sindoor is that bright vermilion red, which is not far from the color of blood. And in many ways, there is a Hindi expression that the khoon ka badla khoon, here Sindoor ka badla khoon hoga, that is blood in response to what they've done to the Sindoor.
All right, Ambassador Sandhu, there's a question for you. Given your experience in Washington, how would you assess the U.S. administration's current position on the India-Pakistan standoff? Has there been a shift in tone or policy from previous administrations?
So I would give three aspects which the American policy and larger population needs to keep in mind. First is the terrorist angle. As our leader just mentioned, that this was a thought out, a focused operation, essentially on the terrorists and terrorist strike. Kindly look at all those terrorists and terrorist organizations. Are they friends of the United States? And what kind of poison they spread about the United States? Number two, there is a very clear strategic geopolitical angle there. I think one of the biggest neighbors of India is very much involved. And I think that has a certain clarity in the United States. I'm sure you understand who and what I'm meaning. The third part, I would say, especially to the audience in the United States, is the democratic angle, the democracy. You know what kind of elections were held, the threats which the army in Pakistan has been facing. And in order to surmount those, this is being utilized, ranks are being given, other challenges, especially the democracy part, is being put behind. So I think any American policy framer, when he looks at these three aspects, I think the choice is very clear. And do keep in mind that these are the same terrorists who have threatened the United States in the past, and you have just witnessed terrorism here and can do it in the future too. So actually, India is fighting the battle on behalf of the world, especially the United States too.
Daniel, if I may come in, is it?
Sure.
I said to Dr. Tharoor that being in America is my alma mater. So I had the opportunity to live here, study here, not just get my degree in business management, but I'm also a student of American music, American culture. And in addition to the shared values points that Ambassador Sandhu spoke about, we share democratic values, pluralistic values. I think there are other fundamentals based on which this relationship between India and the US is completely transformed. We both understand cross-border terrorism very well. We understand Pakistan-sponsored terrorism extremely well. Broadening that scope of cooperation in that area is extremely critical. That has been growing in the last few years and few decades. And that's why, to Dr. Tharoor's point, we received a very, very warm welcome on Capitol Hill. Congressmen, senators chairing the House Foreign Relations Committee, people associated with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the India caucus issued unequivocal, unconditional statements in support of India and condemning Pakistan. But there's also culture and people, and that relationship has also been strengthened considerably in the last 10 or 15 years. And the most critical is in the area of trade and investments. We're hopeful that a bilateral trade agreement will be concluded between both countries very soon. And I think both countries, after COVID, have begun to relook at and rethink their supply chains, look at reshoring jobs to America, to India. Both have an America first, India first policy, bring employment opportunities back to our countries. So I think the basis today of that relationship is largely in the realm of trade and investment. Okay. And I'd like to, Poonam, just quote a statistic because I think it's important for the American media to take that to the American people. Not only are Indian investments in America growing rapidly, but American investments in India have also delivered massive results to investors back home. Few examples of that, a company like Blackstone, which has deployed about $50 billion in India's real estate. Today, the second largest real estate market for Blackstone outside of America is India. They plan to double that investment in a few years. Companies like BlackRock, companies like Brookfield own primary and secondary instruments to the tune of $15 to $30 billion. So it's a very critical partnership that is based on economic cooperation and on mutual investments.
Okay, so since we're talking about trade, just yesterday, Secretary Letnick said that the Trump administration is upset with some of India's policy, including purchasing arms from the Russians. Do you think Trump has a different view of the Indo-U.S. trade relationship than his predecessors?
Do you want to go for that?
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I mean, as far as I'm aware, this may not be an entirely, shall we say, up-to-date answer because I'm not involved in none of us is involved in the trade talks, but we have actually seen a steady change in the pattern of dependence on certain weapon suppliers. Historically, yes, we were major suppliers of Russian equipment. We still need a lot of Russian spare parts and so on, but it's come down a lot from the peak. The comparison I would give you is Pakistan, where 81% of their weapon systems and imports are from China. We don't have that kind of dependence. We've diversified. We have American weaponry. We're very much in the market for more. Whatever the Americans are prepared to discuss with us and sell us, we certainly hope will move forward. We've got French weapons. We have French aircraft. We've also got a lot of Israeli equipment. So we're diversifying. It's not that we are particularly dependent on weapons from any one country, though there was a time when this comment may have been true, that is, that we were overly dependent on the Russian weapons in the days of the Soviet Union particularly. I don't think that's an accurate portrayal of the situation today.
Okay. Well, you mentioned aircraft, and the question in a lot of people's minds is how many aircraft did India lose? We do know that there was some loss of aircraft, but not how many in this latest conflict.
we're not military folks, and our military are the only ones who really keep track of all of these things. But, I think the important message that came out was, whatever may or may not have happened in the course of a conflict, neither side, by the way, talks about losses very much. And that's partially because you know very well that operational details are very closely held with the senior military people. But I can tell you one thing, whatever may or may not have happened, look what happened on what turned out to be the last night of the conflict, when India not only effectively struck 11 airfields of the Pakistani military, but there are commercially available, publicly available satellite pictures showing the extensive damage done. There's been craters on the runway, there have been operational command centers that have been bust by these Indian bombs, and just yesterday, the Pakistanis publicly admitted that Indian strikes were so wide-ranging and effective, they struck from as far as Hyderabad in South Pakistan to Peshawar in the northwest. So it looks very clear that whatever damage the Pakistanis believe they may have inflicted on India, it wasn't sufficient to prevent India from inflicting such extensive damage on Pakistan that they decided to request us to stop, which we're very happy to do.
Okay. So India's maintained that the ceasefire occurred when the Pakistani DGMO called the Indian DGMO, requesting for a cessation of hostilities. Pakistan has been playing up the role of the U.S., and President Trump, even as recent as, I guess, a couple days ago, he keeps saying that he used trade to stop the war.
That's not the impression I have. I can tell you that it was a public record that there were calls coming from various foreign ministers to our foreign minister, to our national security advisor. The U.S. was amongst the most active in this regard, and that Secretary Rubio spoke to his Indian counterpart, Jaishankar. He also, in his second hat of NSA, spoke to his counterpart, Mr. Doval. At one point, Mr. Vance, the vice president, called our prime minister. So there was a lot of calls being made, and that's true also the foreign ministers of the UAE, of Saudi Arabia, France, and so on. Many countries were concerned. My understanding is, in none of these calls was trade ever mentioned, not one. And certainly our information is that from our side, we gave a consistent response throughout, which corresponds to what I've just said to all of you, that we are only taking retribution for a terrorist attack. We are not interested in prolonging this conflict. If Pakistan hits us, we will hit back because we have a right of self-defense. If Pakistan stops, we'll stop. So we didn't need persuading to stop. And that message was given regularly to everybody else who called. I know that some of this is actually out on the sort of Twitter timeline of our foreign minister. So it was an open thing that we're talking to people and letting them know we're ready to call this off anytime the others do. And the others were the ones who were prolonging it. Only Pakistan had one foot on the escalatory ladder, not India. In every case, they initiated, we retaliated. When they stopped, we stopped. That's the way this came to an end.
Right. So critics argue that India hasn't presented enough concrete evidence to the international community regarding Pakistan's role in the Pahalgam attack. And as per the Indian government, the success of Operation Sindoor as well. How would you respond to that? Mr. Surya, would you like to take that question?
Poonam, I think this is not the first time that Pakistan has orchestrated an attack against India and claimed to not have any role in it. The very first attack that they orchestrated was right after independence, 1947. They sent Pakistani armed military men, and they said it was Pakistani raiders who went. They said, we have nothing to do with it. But then it was the Pakistani army. This was not the first time. Even in 1998, Kargil, it was again Pakistani military which was directly involved in the aggression. But they again claimed no responsibility. So much so that when the bodies of the soldiers were retrieved, they were not ready to take them back. Can you expect, is there any other country in the world that would do that? Pathankot, we invited them to conduct a joint operation in one of our air bases, 2611 in the city of Mumbai. Joint investigation happened in Mumbai. Dossiers were presented, not just to Pakistan, but to the international community. Pakistan did nothing. This time around in Pahalgam, within about 30-40 minutes after the attack, a front called the Resistance Front claimed credit for orchestrating this attack. And it was on their website for almost a whole full day until somebody in Pakistan, their handlers told them to take it down. And it was in the United Nations Security Council when the press statement was to be released. It was Pakistan, and it was at the support of China that it was removed, the reference to TRF. And the picture that has been going around on social media, where funerals of the terrorists attended by military-clad army men, is again a testimony to the deep nexus between Pakistani army, Pakistani ISI, Pakistani government, and the terrorists. So this has gone on for a very long time. And I just want to, on the objective that we had set out to achieve, the first attack was with respect to the 9 terrorist bases. All the 9 terrorist bases that were attacked are on the UNSC 1267 list. It was not that India came up with a fictitious list. And the attacks on the 10th, 2 things prove India's capability. One, there are multiple satellite images available in public domain.
Right, and we've
that has been accepted. And the fact that the Pakistani DGMO called the Indian DGMO, his counterpart, and requested for a ceasefire is further proof.
So in your visits to the countries that you visited so far, has the delegation presented more concrete evidence of Pakistan's complicity in the attack?
Look, evidence is a curious way of putting it, because in very many cases, in fact, in the bulk of the cases of the more than 40 to 50 terrorist attacks inflicted on India since the turn of the century, in every case, Pakistan has denied it, and in every case, their complicity has been established. Denial is standard fare for them. So you found Mumbai, 2008, where 170 people, including many American citizens, were killed in 5 locations in Mumbai. What happened? The Pakistanis said it wasn't them. Immediately, one of the killers was captured alive, and he turned out not only to be Pakistani, his family, his address, where he was trained, who trained him, everything was out there. You had the chilling recordings taken by Western intelligence agencies as well as Indian ones of the voice of the Pakistani handler giving minute-by-minute instructions to the killers in Mumbai to continue killing. This kind of evidence, plus the evidence from the interrogation in Kasab, was also provided to the Pakistanis. Entire dossiers were put together.
Right.
Not one person has been prosecuted, not one person has been punished by the Pakistanis. The US, using the same evidence, has jailed David Coleman Headley for planning and plotting this attack, and Tahawoor Rana has been extradited to India, who is a Chicago-based conspirator in this particular thing. So we're showing you that despite the collection of evidence, there is actually no corrective action. So beyond the point, one piece of evidence, Poonam, is a long pattern of conduct. And don't ever forget that the Pakistanis also said they had no idea where Osama bin Laden was until he was found in a safe house right next to an army camp in a cantonment city. So Pakistan denials are not worth anything, frankly. Second is that the Resistance Front is a known proxy for the LET, the Lashkar-e-Toiba, headquartered in Pakistan. And the TRF evidence was given first, not just for this thing, but for their activities, was given first to the UN committee by India in December of 2023. So we've had repeated attempts, 4 attempts, to get the TRF listed. The fact that the TRF then claimed credit for this grotesque attack and did so in less than an hour after it took place, when most of the world didn't even know it had happened, shows their complicity. And third, frankly, our intelligence agencies don't unleash the Indian army or the Indian military without serious work. They have done their bit, and they have identified with names and photographs 4 of the 5 killers, 2 of whom are Pakistani, and 2 of whom were known to be locals who had gone to Pakistan for training 10 years ago and who clearly came back at
So
this time.
in
So
your-
we are 100% sure we have the evidence we need. Those kinds of classified evidence that will not be shared with the public, I'm sure.
No, not with the public,
But
but
Poonam-
with,
With the intelligence agencies of friendly countries, I'm sure there's been some conversation.
But Poonam, can I answer a
Sure.
specific question? You asked us whether the countries we visited have brought this up. Firstly, nobody will bring it up because, as Dr. Tharoor mentioned, Pakistan has no international credibility. And the first response we received from anyone we've met, from Guyana to the United States, is that we understand Pakistan is a, if you want to call it a rogue state, a banana republic, and people very